If you've been watching any pro football this year, you'll have probably felt the stagnation that seems to be plaguing 2023 offenses. Even some of the top quarterbacks don't look like themselves, and defenses appear to have successfully constricted their counterparts into crushing submission. This is all happening due to some great design and a main theory behind how to play defense, utilizing multiple schemes to completely suffocate an opposing offense. With the aerial attack continuously creeping ahead throughout the last 2 decades, defenses have had to become increasingly focused on stopping the spread strikes. To achieve this, 2 main schemes have taken over: split field coverages and what we call cover zero. Now, despite their differing alignment and processes, they actually aim to achieve the same thing: out-leverage the offense, cause confusion, and force the check down to the flat. Starting with split field coverages, you'll often hear commentators referring to the two-high look, which is the base alignment for the split field coverage. It divides the field in 2, presenting different defenses for the quarterback to decipher. Split field theory then divides again into 2 main ideas: quarters and cover 6. After folks solved the cover 3, Vic Fangio was the first man to find an adjustment to the easy air-it-out offenses, implementing his cover 6 scheme. His ideas have continued to develop and be worked upon, creating much of what we see in confusion. Dividing the field down the middle, cover 6 plays cover 2 to one side and cover 4 to the other. The cover 4 is often played to the passing strength of the formation. That's the side with most players flanking the quarterback, helping outnumber the offense. If a third player goes deep, the linebacker will carry, making sure the defense can always protect deep. On the cover 2 side, you also have options. Again, you have leverage deep with the half-field safety, and can have the nickel or will carry the second threat deep if he heads that way. The base of this idea is to always be able to maintain leverage on the man that you're guarding, closing off the deep ball and forcing teams to play underneath. But this is just it being run in its base form. You don't have to stick to these conventions, and you'll often see man coverage played to the cover 2 side, potentially with a banjo call to pass off the receivers for maximum leverage. You can also swap the sides you choose to play each split too. Often, this is referred to as cover 9, playing the quarters defense to the weak side instead. Because of this ambiguity of direction and leverage of deep routes taken away, cover 6 often forces quarterbacks into mistakes or forces them to be patient and find the underneath. Here, against the Niners, the Ravens play cover 9 with both Debo and Ayuk stacked on the weak side, swapping the quarters over to neutralize the speed and talent. Purdy isn't sure what he's seeing here, and works back to the strong side, but he's a fraction too late to the check down, and the ball's tipped and going the other way. Here again, the coverage is flipped to make a cover 9, and making sure Jamar Chase's speed is cut off. And here's one of the big advantages of cover 6. It cuts off those crossing patterns. By the time Chase has cleared his chip and worked his way across into what should be the vacated space created by Tyler Boyd, Patrick McQueen is able to read it and drop to cut off the angle, allowing pressure to force Burrow up through the pocket and into a scramble. And of course, the check down is encouraged, especially on long downs and distance plays or in the red zone, where forcing the ball underneath and tackling makes points much harder to come by. Next on the evolution train came quarters, working on the same principles of splitting the field, only with pattern match principles, creating confusion and continuing to out-leverage. Pattern matching means to divide your coverage based on the passing pattern the offenses are trying to execute. Instead of being tasked with covering a specific area or player, defenders will distribute the weapons based on route depth and direction. Starting from the same 2 high safety looks, the corners will generally be playing off too, allowing the defense to always have 4 defenders ready to out-leverage an all-go attack. Like cover 6, it splits the field in 2, and the best way to think of the setup is as a box and triangle, with the box generally being played to the strength of the offensive formation. Let's start with the box, and as mentioned, each player has a specific set of rules that determines who they're covering. Starting with the corner, he has all of number 1 unless he goes underneath, in which case he leaves him for the inside help, gaining depth to his zone. The most important threat to key on in this defense is the number 2 receiver, so the player tasked with covering him is extremely crucial, referred to as the apex player or the overhang in this scheme. He's going to base his coverage on the number 2 threat. If he goes outside, he'll match him to the flat. If he goes deep, he'll carry him to the safety. And if he goes in, he'll deliver him to the Mike linebacker. The safety is also reading too. If he goes vertical, he's now his man, making sure to maintain leverage and shy away that deep ball. If 2 goes out, number 1 is likely coming deep and he needs to have the angle and depth to protect the post, while being able to break to the fade or downhill to a dig. If the number 2 receiver goes in, this is usually a sign that there's a crosser coming from the other side, so the safety will shade middle, trying to jump a throw from an angle the QB isn't expecting. The mic in the box has got the responsibility of the number 3 threat, usually in the form of a running back. If this number 3 goes vertical, he best be fast because it's his job to out-leverage him. If 3 goes out, the mic will give a push call, sliding the apex defender over to the 3 in the flat and assume his responsibilities on the number 2. If the 3 goes back across, the mic will deliver him to the next defender and look to pick up work coming the other way. Now that's the box covered. Let's talk about the triangle. And those rules are slightly different, although still keying on the number 2. Because the will is part of the run fit, he can't just follow them out to the flat, or you'll be giving up huge runs all day long. Instead, the corner will trap down on the number 2 if he goes out, and the will looks to the number 1 coming under, continuing to gain depth if he goes vertical, leaving him for the safety. If the 2 goes vertical, the will is responsible for carrying him to the safety. If he heads inside, he'll deliver him to the mic and look for crossers. The safety is also reading number 2, taking him vertically if he attacks deep, but if he goes out, the corner will trap down, leaving nobody to cover the number 1, which now makes this the safety's responsibility if he goes deep. If 2 goes in or they run any sort of pick play, it's much like the other safety's responsibility. Make sure you have control of that post and be ready to jump or steal any crossing route coming from the far side. Watch Kyle Hamilton execute this to perfection here. Because he's left without a responsibility, he can get his eyes on Purdy, and with the ball being a fraction late, jumps right in front of it for the red zone pick. If that all sounds complicated to you, try deciphering it in 2.5 seconds while 4 300-pound men try to throw you into the turf. And then you'll understand why these guys are struggling. Because of the shifts and finer details that a team may tag a defense with, it is incredibly easy for even the most cerebral of QBs to miss reads or backside hang defenders. Instead, they're forced to take checkdowns and
just keep matriculating the ball down the field, boys.
But thanks to the modern age speed of players, even this can get shut down real fast. Teams are practically enticing offenses to attack the flat, knowing they have the speed to get to the boundary and shut your play down. Anything too slow developing to the flat is a recipe for disaster. Nowadays, the line between quarters and cover 6 have blurred, with both implementing tips and tricks from each other to create an even more difficult to decipher defense. The philosophy of both coverages is the same though. Protect deep by out-leveraging the offense, create confusion by disguising looks, and force quarterbacks to sit in and throw to the flat, using the speed of modern defensive players to rally the ball. And these ideas are also the main foundation of the other scheme sweeping the league, the cover 0 look. Spreading mostly from the influences of Brian Flores, the look provides the same leverage advantage by standing DBs way back, but creates confusion by standing every remaining defender up at the line of scrimmage. Here, Minnesota have 7 up at the line, all threatening to rush, and 4 guys way back over the top of each receiver. This guarantees a free rusher, and if you slide in another guy to protect, they bring another rusher, always being able to force a free rusher. It's gotta come out quick, but quick screens and hitters are negated by not playing strict man coverage, passing off routes depending on the leverage, allowing them to play fast downhill and to anything quick and short. You could attempt to jailbreak and go over the top, but all your wideouts are out-leveraged, and with the fast oncoming rusher, there's potential that you might have to float this up. Dangerous idea with this kind of leverage. And as much as the middle looks open, well, there's clever ways to protect this too. While Minnesota will initially rush 1 more than can be blocked, certain players will only show the blitz before dropping into a rat zone to muddy the passing lanes. And this is just a start. The cover 0 show doesn't have to be a blitz, with teams using it to create protection confusion up front before dropping into all manner of coverages. Here, the Ravens creep Hamilton up to the line to show 7, but are actually going to drop into a Tampa 2. Burrow thought he might have an option to his slot, but Hamilton is going to track him the whole way. The bluff blitz leads to a strong rush, bringing Burrow to the ground. One of Brian Flores' favorite rolls out of this look is into drop 8, first presenting 8 men up at the line of scrimmage, before dropping into a Tampa 2 with the rat zone for crossers underneath. Jordan Love makes the correct read here, trying to attack right down the middle of the field. but a yard off allows Josh Metellus to make a fabulous play, ripping this out of Reed's grasp. And here, the Saints have 7 up at the line, but are going to roll into a cover 3. Tannehill has nowhere to go on the long downs and just has to ground it before he gets grounded. The flat seems the obvious place to attack, and that's definitely a viable option. Modern defenses just have so much speed that they're willing to give this up and rally as fast as possible to get there. Minnesota will even run this on short yardage, knowing that if the offense hesitates in the slightest, they'll be there to stop it. While these new meta coverages may align differently, what they aim to achieve is the same. Out-leverage your opponent, create confusion, and force the ball to the flat. Of course, these coverages are not the only defenses teams are using, and a variety must be mixed in to continue to keep these quarterbacks guessing. As always, if you can go out there and play variations of 1-man and 2-man, go do it. It's the most effective system, if you have the talent. But if you can't, then modern times provide an answer, and you best get there before it gets solved. So, if the 2 most popular modern defenses are trying to achieve the same thing, how are offenses attacking it? And what can they do to flip that switch? Well, for the most part, they're struggling. Last year, we talked about the Chiefs' use of 1-4 splits to help recapture the numbers advantage against split field coverages. And to an extent, almost everyone has implemented this into their playbook. However, teams are still far too rigid in their splits, or lack the talent or balls to simply play one-on-one with the stud receiver. Split field coverages in Cover 0 are offering the flat to attack immediately, and teams need to be more willing to overexpose this weakness quickly and through repetition. With so many teams dedicated to the shotgun, the 3-step drop from under center has almost entirely disappeared from modern offenses, with very few looking to rep this as an integral part of their game. Attacking early and from under center gives teams no chance to set, allowing you to attack exactly where they are offering you a weakness. Dropping from shotgun takes longer due to the exchange and distance, and closes angles that are otherwise open to hit. In shotgun, so many teams will play action or run an RPO inside, not getting the ball to the flat immediately, and a defender will fly downhill and break up the run. We're at the point now where every player who's in the NFL was seeing these RPO screens in high school, and they're simply too well versed and too fast to the ball for them to be effective, even against these backed up coverages. Another way to beat backed up defenses is to just run the damn football, and split fields are noticeably susceptible to counter runs. The explanation for this could be its own video, but it essentially boils down to being too static and regimented in their front alignment, making it easy to pick apart with the counter. Most teams tend to save their Cover 0 formations for long downs or distances, so establishing the run should see offenses have to attack this less. The final reason offenses appear to be failing is a pretty tragic one, but it's the reality of this league that we so love to enjoy. And that's just that we have so many damn injuries this year. We're now up to 59 starting quarterbacks for the 23 season, with the week of the regular season still to go. Now, this is by no means the main reason. The top guys are struggling too, but watching guys who don't have the arm talent or processing power get thrust into action as defenses evolve to create more confusion is a recipe for some pretty ugly football. The NFL is a cyclical league with some of the smartest sports minds battling it out to confuse each other. No system stays on top forever, and this theory will eventually be proven wrong with time. For now, teams need to continue to stress the 1-4, attack faster, and play more from under center. The offense that can achieve this and run the ball when it comes cold in January is my favorite for the chip.